Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Golden Vault, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Keys from the Golden Vault. If you're playing characters Cherie, Elowen, Stacey, Tamino, Rivero, the stream is not meant for you because it'll be full of spoilers, but the rest of you are always welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Sunday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below if you'd like to support the channel. Please check out patreon.com/roguewatson. You can also support us by shopping for your tabletop games, CCGs, miniatures, RPG supplies, and more to our sponsor, Noble Knight Games, using my affiliate link. For our campaign, we use Roll20net. For streaming, I use OBS Studio. So, things did not exactly end up how I thought they would last session. I don't know why I did not prepare for the party to be the ones to flee. I guess because it happens, and we talked about this in the post-game chat, it happens so rarely that I almost never even consider it an option. Where a very powerful D&D adventuring party will choose to retreat, and the fact that retreat is even a viable option, because usually it's not, because the enemies can just follow you. But this was a very unique situation where the party isn't there to defeat all the bad guys, I guess. It's still a heist, so they're there to do a thing, which in this case is to just activate the failsafe. So they just needed the key off of the boss, which they were able to get here, and that was totally fine. But for some reason, I was always expecting the boss to have to be the one to flee, because that's usually what happens in D&D, and then the boss resurfaces later. I was honestly surprised that the party chose to do it that way, but like Chris was saying in the post-game chat, it just kind of ended up being the way it played out, because the fact that only two of them were in there in the boss room, and they were both able to put up enough distractions or debuffs that they could just get away, and then the rest of the party wasn't even in there, so it was a very easy choice to just be like, let's go, let's beat feet and get out of here. So, and I'm totally okay with that. I just shame on me for not anticipating that might be an option, because I was fully expecting the party to be able to get some minor downtime, at least a short rest, and then have my villain show up at the tavern so they can have that big tavern scene, which is what we talked about last week, right? We talked about having this kind of surprising, I don't know, like social moment with the villain after you've already fought them, and perhaps even talking the villain down and just seeing how the party would react to that. Now, I don't think I can pull that off, at least the way I initially was thinking about it, because no time has passed. The party has already made it to Smolder Town. They're essentially, I'm looking at the map. There's two maps for Smolder Town, and I'm looking at the north one, which literally has, I guess I'll spawn them like right on this bridge. I'm not even sure that I put dynamic lighting. Yeah, I didn't have dynamic lighting on the bridge section. I was just literally going to do it in the tavern. So, like, they're already inside of the foundry and the tavern. Like, it doesn't make any sense to have the boss just in there, like, drinking away. Like, like, narrative-wise, she's only just now getting out of her, like, restraints and stuff. I guess if you really wanted to, you could just have her teleport there because she's got Dimension Door or whatever. But it feels weird timing-wise because they just ran from that fight. And then to immediately run, I mean, that's almost like a horror movie thing, right? Where it's like you immediately run into the person you're running from, and it's like, wait, you're like some kind of supernatural bullshit, or else I'm hallucinating or something. So I don't think it makes sense to do that now. Yeah, the party is really spent, which has been very tricky, Tom, because I really am trying to balance this out to not let them have a long rest in this heist, which, to be fair, I think for all heists, I don't think you can really have a long rest once you start the actual heist. You know, the other ones, they did some reconnaissance first. They were able to do like some portions of the planning, and then return and then get the rest, and then when it was time to execute the heist, they did it all on one rest. But they also didn't have nearly as many combat encounters, which I totally realized. This one is a very combat heavy heist. It's a very dangerous area, so I knew it was going to test them quite a bit. And honestly, like spell slot wise and resources wise, they're doing just fine. We looked at their spell slots, and I mean, they've got plenty of options there. I think the main thing that's kicking their butts is the hit dice. They're definitely losing out on hit points. The poor fighter, I think she's out of hit point. Although notice how she's got a lot of potions of healing, and I even slipped her one through the NPCs who stole a bunch of potions of healing. The party still hasn't like confronted them about it either, which I'm actually very impressed with. They could just like, beat up their the goblin boss and like take the couple potions he's got. I've been trying to like track them. I think he's given out 2 to Stacy so far, and I think they ended up stealing 5 total. So technically there's some more in there, but yeah, she's at about 60%, 70% hit points right now with no chance to really heal. Now she does have second wins, but she spent like 2 or 3 because the new 2024 rules give you multiple second wins. She's got 1 remaining. I would like for the party to be able to get a short rest, I think, before at least taking on the workshop, which I think they could have time to do that if they find a safe place, and the tavern would definitely could qualify perhaps as a safe place, maybe. Just because balance-wise, I feel like that would help them the most. They wouldn't be able to get any hit dice back, but at least Daisy could get back like another second win, for example. Tavine could get back some focus points. Let's see, Cherie still, I'm assuming still, yeah, plays plenty of spell slots. Like, Cherie's got nothing, but again, very much a funky utility wizard where he can't use a lot of his spells very effectively, so it's kind of weird to track his. And Elowen, throughout the entire last fight, was wild shape, so I don't believe she actually spent any spells either. Yeah, she's also got plenty of spells. So weirdly, like spell-wise, yeah, the spellcasters have tons of options, but people are definitely hurting on hit points. Vero, wow, okay, Vero would definitely like a short rest. He still has all of his hit dice, and he's very wounded, so he would definitely vote for that. I assume the monk would always vote for a short rest. Where does it say focus points in the new sheet? Oh yeah, he's also got Hand of Healing. I've never seen... Has anybody seen him use any of his healing abilities? I forgot he was that kind of monk, honestly. He's like the healing monk, right? That's like a whole subclass. Warrior of Mercy, yeah. I literally can't remember the last time he used his healing abilities. Oh no, those are focus points it's tracking. Okay. I see. So he's got 2 focus points left. So yeah, he would definitely want a short rest as well. But yeah, I forgot he could do that. He could expect a focus point to restore a number of hit points equal to a roll of your martial arts die plus your wisdom modifier. So basically as if you were punching somebody, but you're healing them instead. But he also has healing hands. As a magic action, you touch a creature and roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency, which is 3. Creature regains the number of hit points equal to the total rolled. So just once per long rest, you can heal 3d4, which is a really tiny amount. It's like 7 hit points or something. Man, somebody should remind Reese that he plays a healer monk, because I honestly do not remember that at all. So they're going to be looking to crash in here in short rest. So what I need to do is adapt, which is the thing that DMs have to do. So I think we don't use Tockworth at all in the tavern, which is honestly a bummer, because I was thinking that was going to be a cool thing that I could do. What we could do, though, is point out the tavern to the party, and adventures being what they are, be like, well, let's go hop in the tavern and just see if this is a safe place. We can, huddle down in here with the patrols going, and Tockworth won't be there, but we could still have the bartender there. I may want to use a different token, because I realize that this looks, and the party's going to be on alert mode, so it might actually be better if I found a better custom token for this. I was thinking like Tockworth, there's not really precedent for this because all the Clockworks are soldiers, but maybe she also built one to be just a bartender. Like, I don't know. I just think it'd be kind of funny. So it's just got like, it doesn't have any armaments or anything. It's just purely serving, and maybe it's loaded up with some like phrases or something. I don't know, to be fun. But kind of play into the fact, like, I'm thinking maybe I can tease the fact that Tockworth does come here normally and share her inner thoughts and feelings, and the party might be able to learn about that while they're here just from this robot bartender. And in fact, the bartender could even, because Tockworth's probably the only one who comes in here now, and the bartender could even say, welcome back, Overseer Tockworth. Good to see you. Maybe it's pinging off the key that they're wearing, or maybe it just thinks every person that comes in is Tockworth. I don't know. Will you be having the usual then? And kind of and give a drink and give 2 drinks and put one in front and then one next to, and then if the party wanted to ask questions or something, they could. And then I don't know. I could just tease the fact that there's like something else going on with Tockworth, I guess, and then we could maybe have that social moment come later during a much trickier time to do a social moment, which would be presumably in another big boss battle thing. Well, yeah, like a Warforged. Yeah. In fact, that's probably a good token to find, would be just a Warforged. Yeah, just a clockwork dude. I wonder if I can just find a Warforged token somewhere. I could also just bring it from the compendium. If I can find one that doesn't look like it's about to throw down in battle, which I'm sure like the Eberron books have various artwork of clockworks in different positions and things, or Warforged, I should say. So that's probably what I'm going to pivot to, is that Tockworth is no longer actually going to be in the tavern, but perhaps the robot bartender can act like the party is Tockworth coming in, and then I can kind of tease the fact that there's more going on. Now, as long as the party plays it cool and, closes the door, I have no problem with them short resting in here. I'm not going to let them long rest, especially right here at the very end. I just don't think it's, and that's just kind of the balance of D&D also. It's tricky because like a lot of video game RPGs, they give you that full heal right before a big boss fight, right? Because that's how they balance it. But I really don't think D&D, and I've been saying this for years, is honestly balanced that way. I think the D&D balance wants you to have to go through the whole dungeon on a single long rest and manage your resources, including the boss fight. But short rests, yes. I think they should definitely short rest. I think this would be like their third, at least, short rests that they've had, which is getting pretty crazy. And in fact, I've been reviewing like Daggerheart right now, and Daggerheart straight up says like, no, only 2 short rests per rest, and then after that they have to look for a long rest. So we are reaching the breaking point of just how long and how brutal this has been. But again, they've got all these other resources, they've got all these spell slots and stuff. It's just that the marshals have been taking some serious licks. But I would encourage them. I would point out, I guess I could also point out the Foundry. But the Foundry is not, you could technically short rest in there as well, but there's just nothing in there. It's just not as interesting as the tavern, which the party doesn't know that, to be fair. They just think it's we just need to get into a building. But I could point out the Foundry and the tavern. The Foundry literally is completely empty, except it's got some smith's tools and tinker's tools, I guess, as minor loot. The tavern doesn't have any loot, but and it does have actual like beer and ale in there and whiskey that they can enjoy. So I think that's my plan, is to let them short rest in the tavern. Probably not even use this map, honestly. I'd probably just keep them on, even though I've got that map set up. But that was just in case there was a battle. I don't think there's going to be a battle now. So instead, they can see that there's a welcoming tavern here and pop on over to that. And then get a short rest. Now, I did tease the fact that there's going to be patrols of enemies around. Now, because they weren't able to actually conquer the security office or whatever, they did not get that extra information I was planning on giving them, which was like where the patrols are and be able to pinpoint what enemies they're still facing. They really have no idea. But they should know that normally the districts are patrolled by the Clockworks and the observers and things. So they're going to have to deal with probably one of those patrols, which involves... Honestly, it just involves Elwyn probably casting Pass Without Trace and getting everybody out of there, but that's fine. That's a resource they're using. A stealth check or something as the observers. And I think I teased at the end of last session, you might have to remind me, that they actually did even see observers like in the distance with like yellow lights on. So they're like actively searching. So the place is on high alert. So I think they would have to... I guess you could also argue they could just time it, but I think that still involves hiding with, if you're within line of sight distance of seeing a patrol go by, I think I would call for stealth checks from folks to make it to the tavern. What I won't do is necessarily throw a huge other patrol at them like I did with the other one, which is they were able to get away from. Instead, it's going to be really tiny patrols of enemies. But I mean, any combat encounter is going to take a while, and unfortunately, these are very tanky enemies, as we've discovered. But hopefully, they can make it through, because it's still a very active hostile dungeon that they have to survive and deal with. So they can use spells, they can use stealth checks, whatever they need, or just try to be inventive about using distractions, I guess you could do. Yeah, I'd be open to doing things as long as it probably required like a stealth check or something. Okay, thank you, Tom. So I've already talked about how there's like active patrols around here that they will have to deal with. So they can make it to the tavern. They can short rest, maybe learn a little bit about Tockworth's kind of off a rocker, but also maybe not like necessarily completely insanely chaotic evil or anything like that. They can, maybe try to get through with her in some way. After that, they can try to plan on how to hit this workshop, which, all they have is their map to go with, which... it already points out the tavern here, and then there's the workshop, so pretty close by. And that's where we can look at our map and decide how the party wants to deal with this, because they don't know what they're up against, and they might have just thought like, man, we just did a big boss fight. And like, yeah, you did, but you got one final gauntlet to get through. So the tavern would be a little bit like north of here. The maps are kind of divided up, so I've kind of thrown them on this map, although I realize I need to actually put their NPC allies on this map as well. I keep forgetting about those guys. You, and you have all survived so far. So, 3 of you on this map. Let's just go there. Go to... something like that. That's a big-ass party now. Okay, so this is the workshop. This is the final gauntlet. Outside the workshop, so their goal is just to get to this failsafe and do the use action, or whatever, utilize an object, whatever. It's a full action to insert the keys. And once they do that, that deactivates all of the automatons. It will not turn off the security overseer, but it will deactivate all of the automatons, which is cool because this looks really difficult until you realize that their goal, again, is not to kill it, which I like. The goal is not to kill everybody. The goal is just to make it in here and use that item to turn everybody off. But they still have to make it inside. So it's a 2-story windowless structure. Poor Vero hasn't been able to use any of his second-story work or window entries or anything in here, but it specifically does say windowless 2-story structure of the workshop. And it is guarded outside by a shield guardian. Now, I have modified the shield guardian. I think I did it a week or two ago. And kind of, because it's not really going to use its protection reaction, I probably won't use its regeneration. Like, I'm making it more of a clockwork than an actual shield guardian, I guess. It still has its force punch, which I think got a glow up in 2024. Also, a lot of big creatures have bigger reach, which I do like. No longer 5-foot reach you have to worry about. I gave it a laser eye, which is based on, I think, a young bronze dragon, maybe. Basically, it shoots like Cyclops from X-Men, doing force damage in a line. And then it also has a single... I did utilize the spell storing, and I gave it, I believe, the Confusion spell, which it can use once as a Sonic Disruptor. So a bunch of like loud noises and shit in a 10-foot radius, which I was going to do in a 10-foot radius around it. But technically the spell lets you cast it at a certain distance. It's got 150 hit points and a lot of the condition immunities that the Clockworks have. Interestingly, only 10 feet of blind sight, though, which is actually not as good as some of the other Clockworks. So that's one boss fight they have to deal with. Now, you could argue that they're going to try to do something where they're going to distract it or pull it away from the door, which I would actually encourage. I think that's a great strategy. What they don't know is that it's got a 40-foot long like laser eye that it can blast people with, for example. I also gave it 2 of the Clockwork Defenders as really quick melee attackers that can close in, and then a Clockwork Observer who will summon a patrol if they don't deal with it soon enough. And then we've got multiple patrols set up. Again, these are tiny patrols, like 1 of the Enforcers, which is like the animated armor modified guys, and then 2 of the Hounds would be with a patrol. So that's something they have to deal with outside of the workshop. Now, inside of the workshop, this is where we can have Tockworth reappear, which would be a shock to the party. Because hopefully they've short rested and some time has passed. And again, Tockworth's got the full like teleportation stuff that they never actually even witnessed. So more than likely we will have because I think it would be kind of anticlimactic if they never deal with her again. So I'm thinking that Tockworth is going to be back. In fact, we'll just have these 2 right there in the workshop, and then she's got 2 more Enforcers in here. We've also got a very visible trap placed here, which is originally the Crown of Madness spell that they have to deal with, but we're going to change that because Crown of Madness is actually a weird spell to put on a trap, because if the person who fails is not near anybody, it doesn't really matter. And most likely in a trap, you're walking into the trap, so you're not going to be near anybody else. So I actually think it's not a great one to use for an ongoing. It's great for an enemy to put on a player character or vice versa when you know it's going to be effective and hit that person and they have to deal with it. But for trap purposes, I am changing that to the Hypnotic Pattern spell. So it's a chance of just incapacitating anybody who steps through with a DC 15, which is pretty nasty. And then the Clockworks, and I'll probably just say Tockworth is immune to those effects. I believe Clockworks just automatically pass the save, and then whatever Tockworth like designed the whole thing, so she would be immune to it as well. So that's several complications the party has to make it through. And I did not tell them about this trap, which the published adventure actually says to mention that fact to them, and I did not, because I figure that should be another just surprise thing they have to deal with at the end. So to do all this, they have to get past the Shield Guardian and the defenders. They have to make it inside the workshop, which I did lock, but the key, I will just say, will open it, but it will, again, technically could take an action to whatever open. And then inside they have the trap and they have the final defenders. Now, once you still make it inside and are able to use the trap, use the failsafe, that will turn off everybody, including the Shield Guardian, will just automatically depower everybody except Tockworth, who will continue to fight unless the party does think to try to get through to her. In which case, even Kavoda would probably be okay with, as long as the idea is she's going to go to jail or something. Basically, he doesn't necessarily need to see if she's willing to surrender, then they'd be fine with probably throwing her in prison or something for all these misdeeds. So I would be amenable to that, but she would at least start with still fighting the party, and they would have to deal with all that. But I'm hoping we can come up with some kind of tense, cool moment where maybe half the party has to fight these guys and distract them, and somebody else has to like sneak inside, and they have to deal with this complication, and just all they have to do is reach this one point to hopefully turn everything off. But there's just so many things in the way that could basically be a huge problem for them, and even getting through invisibly is not really going to work that well because of the fact that everybody's got blind sight to some degree. Invisible does, I think, would still. Actually, I don't know if you have blind sight. I wonder if invisible doesn't. It would probably just negate the disadvantage completely at that point. Because I'm thinking normally if you're invisible, you actually have disadvantage. There's some kind of weird, realistic thing where we DMs think of like, okay, invisible, nobody can see you, but mechanically it's actually like, oh no, they just have disadvantage against you unless you actually take the hide action and go through those mechanics for invisible, is what I understand. But they don't have a whole lot of those tools regardless, other than Varro just hiding in general. What else? Oh yeah, and then the upstairs, we're kind of ignoring the upstairs. The upstairs is normally where you find the safe that has the key, but the players already have the key because they got it off of Tockworth to begin with. So she knows now that they have the key that they should be able to activate the failsafe. So hence why she would go back to the workshop to defend it against them. You could also argue that Tockworth would be outside with the Guardian for a bigger fight, but I kind of like splitting them up a little bit, adding to more complexities in here. And maybe she's got some way that she can, specifically fast travel inside of her workshop besides just hanging out outside. But I feel like she would just hang out right near the failsafe and try to keep anybody away from it. Is it utilize an object? Is that what I'm thinking of as the action? It's just a utilize action. Okay. Which again, I know Varro can do as a bonus action, which is pretty handy. Which honestly has come in very handy for things when you need to like lockpick through doors and stuff. Utilize. You normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword as part of the attack action. When an object requires an action for its use, you take the utilize action. So basically, it's just up to DMs in terms of what actually takes a full action. Which I would argue that lockpicking a door takes a full action. And to an extent, inserting keys and activating the failsafe would also take a full action. Would take the utilize action, which again, I know Varro can do as a bonus action. So I like having, I think those are nice little complications you can throw at the party. I guess if they're not lockpicking it though, do they still need to use the action to unlock the door? That's actually a good question. What do we think, fellow DMs? Is there any kind of ruling about... What am I trying to look up? I know there's a whole section on doors in the DM's guide. Which is funny. If you have the key... I guess my question is, if you have a key and you just have to unlock a door, but it's during combat, would that still require the utilize an action, or would you let them just unlock the door? Doors. With the utilize action, a creature can try to force open a door that is barred or locked. Locked door. Characters who don't have the key to a locked door can try to pick the lock using thieves' tools. This just says, what happens if you do have the key? I could see it ruling either way. It does take a minute to fumble for that key. Yeah, I think we all agree that lockpicking is an action. I guess my question is, if a door is locked, but you possess the key, does that still take the utilize action? I'm saying it does, because also I'm saying that using the key to unlock the failsafe is a utilize action. Also, as written, the workshop... As written, it's weird. Like, none of these doors are locked, which I find bizarre, so I'm, like, locking them. At least, like, the important ones, like her workshop and the security center should have been locked. Unless they're in the overview section and I missed that. Interiors, many buildings, characters, occupants, little value. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about whether the places are normally locked or not. Doesn't say. Okay. So I find that like a weird oversight that a lot of these places aren't locked and there's not really any keys for any of that. So what I'm saying is that the workshop is locked. However, the key that they took off of Tockworth is the same key that unlocks the door to get in here. But as anybody who's tried to unlock a door with a physical key knows, it takes a hot second to do that. Mainly, it takes a second to fish the fucking keys out and figure out which key, because you get a key ring, presumably. Although this isn't a key ring situation, I guess it's a single key on a necklace, so it wouldn't be that hard to do it. But I don't know. I still think that that would be a utilize action. But maybe that's just me being too pedantic as a DM. I mean, I am trying to throw up these barriers as slowing the party down, basically, and not have them just instantly like, oh, you run through the door, oh, you run in here, oh, you're instantly like doing the failsafe thing. Like, I don't want them to do all of that in a single turn or two. I do want this to take several rounds of grueling like survival fighting as the party makes it inside. Difficult terrain. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I guess that would be the other ruling for it, is you could spend movement. I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I don't know if I'm gonna go with that, but if the players argued that, I think I would probably accept it. But I think I would try to stop them with a utilize action first. But I could see where, like, there's a difference between trying to if picking a lock takes a whole action, then I guess that probably shouldn't take as long just to open the door with the key. So you're saying, like, just crossing through the threshold of the door would be difficult terrain, so it would take 10 feet of movement versus 5 feet. Yeah, I could see that. I'm still saying that activating the failsafe is going to take utilize action, though. That's just my prerogative right there. Maybe the way the keys have to be in. I mean, it's having to insert 2 keys. That's a little more complicated. Maybe it's like a puzzle box where you have to like find the keyholes or something. I'm guessing this is still going to take us more than one session. We'll do some, again, we can do some short rests, stealthing past the patrol, maybe talking to the bartender, maybe planning on how to get through this workshop without them, unfortunately, knowing the information that I was going to plan on giving them, which is about the fact that it is being guarded by forces and all of that. And after that, they can come out, probably require another, stealth check against the patrols, for example, because, again, this is a very hostile area. They got to be careful of that. And the last thing I want to do, honestly, is to throw combat encounters at them for failing checks, but that's just what this adventure is, basically. It's just, there's enemies all over, they are actively searching for you at this point, and you have to be smart enough to avoid them, basically. But after that, they can kind of scout either direction. They can come from the north or from the west, because they're kind of northwest. You could even go through the buildings if you wanted to, although the way I've done dynamic lighting, it's actually really hard to see. Okay, right there, you could look through 2 different buildings without going all the way to the street, I guess. But with a single stealth check, I would probably allow somebody to go from the tavern to a place where they can see the workshop, because it's all pretty close by. I think if we look at the larger map, it's 75 feet from the actually probably the tavern to the workshop. Yeah, you're looking at about 75 feet. So, and I think it's like literally like right here on this street. That's the map kind of encompasses this section here. It's actually, I don't know if that's to scale on my end then. I don't think it's that big on that map for 75 feet across. Maybe it is. But with one stealth check, I would probably allow them to leave the tavern and get into a position that they can see the outside of the workshop and see the guards that are there. And then if they want to approach further, I would probably force another stealth check at that point just against the guards outside the workshop to deal with them, or possibly to draw attention to them, which the interesting thing there is if they initially try to do a thing where they make a distraction to draw the enemies away from the workshop, only the hounds will go, and the shield guardian will be given basically specific instructions to remain at the workshop and only like defend the workshop itself. And then of course there's also an observer there, so that could call patrols, so that could be an issue. So it would really require the party to fight pretty close to the workshop to where the shield guardian, which again I'm reflavoring and renaming just Tockworth Guardian, I guess, would even step away at all from the workshop. But from there, they can try to jump in, and then they'll have to deal with all the other complications inside. It's a good scenario for Vero to shine, for sure. Which, the other thing they'll have to choose beforehand is who to give the keys to. Who is actually going to do the failsafe option? Who do we think is the best? And it might be a thing where they have to, like, give each other the keys or do with that, because it's not just a question of getting the failsafe and flipping a button. You have to use those keys, which who's got the keys? I don't know who has the mayor's key, but I believe Stacey has the other one. So and maybe the party thinks like, oh, it's like a which I would do this if it weren't for the map art and everything being in there, but it's like that classic, like, they're far enough apart where it requires two people with two keys to flip the switch. I think that would actually be really interesting. But because it's like a box on the floor with this like trap around it and everything, I don't want to change that mechanics of it too much. So I think I'm just going to leave it to it's like one thing. And one person can basically do it with two keys, but it just, takes a little bit longer to do that. And then, and that's probably for the benefit of the party, because then you only have to have one person that actually makes it inside to try to survive that trap, which that's a bad trap. You waltz in there. I mean, hypnotic pattern, I don't think I have to tell y'all what that is, but it's got to be one of the most effective crowd control spells in the game. In fact, I think it has friendly fire built in. And actually, it does not. Sorry. Each creature in the area who can see the pattern must succeed on a wisdom save or have the charmed condition for the duration. While charmed, the creature has the incapacitated condition and a speed of 0. They just do nothing. Now, interestingly, I think Elwyn has something against charm, right? I think elves have a built-in, either have advantage or maybe even immunity to charm, which is pretty handy. But otherwise, like stepping in and just constantly having to make wisdom saves. And this is a trap, so there's nothing concentrating on it. So the only thing you have to do is to remake the saves, or you take damage, or another creature uses an action to shake the creature out of its stupor, which is this Vero like throwing a dagger at you, basically. I would presume Tockworth and her Clockworks would know not to jack with that, since this is her, trap setup, and wouldn't trigger that. But certainly allies could take advantage of that, where somebody could, who's outside of the trap, could shake that person by using an action or throwing a dagger or something, so they can still be active and used. Although, hilariously, somebody like Stacey has been always making these freaking saves, like nailing them, even though I don't think she's got a very good wisdom save. But like every time I was trying to shoot her with, the debuff raise or something, she was making those saves. Yeah, +0 on the wisdom. Crazy. But because I just don't know how this fight is going to go, like I guess there's a slight chance we could get it done in one session, but I really doubt it. Again, because of the downtime we've got and the kind of setup and stuff, I think it's going to be more comfortably taking 2 sessions. Plus, we got all the falling action from afterwards, but I think this is going to comfortably take 2 more sessions. I just don't know at all how this fight is going to go or how the party is going to plan for this. The best thing we can do is just have it set up and, like I said, have my own notes about the fact that what they're probably going to want to do, again, because it's a heist, they know they have to get in there and try to not fight these guys as much as they can, is to try to pull them away by distracting them somewhere else. And like I said, my first thought is just to have the observer and the hounds go first towards the distraction. And then, the party will have to deal with the shield guardian in some way. And if the guardian can see anybody, it will immediately unleash, its 40-foot laser blast of a Cyclops beam at them. But as long as they pull it off slightly away from the door, they can get in. If whoever's got the key can get inside, and then there's like I said, a slight complication in here with 2 more of these enforcers. These enforcers also are technically all equipped with the nets and the sleep gas. I would probably not use the sleep gas because we've already got hypnotic pattern here, and also they wouldn't want to hit the Overseer Tockworth with the sleep gas. I could probably use the net attack, or just have them punch and just kind of be around as a... And it'll also be a good visual representation of when you use the failsafe. They just kind of immediately, like, do the passing out thing. If they just stand up still, but, like, clearly they... as they shut down. And at that point, the party could start making, like, influence checks. And I would require an influence check, which is a full action in the 2024 rules, on Tockworth to try to talk her down, talk Tockworth down from fighting to the death, basically, which I think once they activate the failsafe, she would be a lot more amenable to that. Like, I might give them advantage or something, depending on how everything is going. But I'm also willing to have her fight to the death. Like, whatever. This could be entertaining. Imagine the whole open the box, insert the key, and turn them at the same time type of stuff. Yeah. Frustrating when you have a plan, but the dice just side with the players. It can be. Yeah. It's always a tricky balance as a DM. Like, you want everybody to have fun, like, ultimately. Like, and that's the thing that I think you don't want to get lost in, is, like, what is the more fun situation here? Is it to have a really long, drag out, beat down fight? No. But I also don't think it's that fun to be able to just dance your way inside with a single spell or something and instantly win the day either. So the goal that I'm looking for is to try to create that really fun, tense, epic moment of the party just winning by the skin of their teeth, which is hard as hell to pull off in any scenario, frankly. But those are the ones that are really memorable and fun. It's like, oh man, we had half the party out here. We were battling for our lives. Like this, God, if the hulking guardian is just about to get somebody down and just looming over them, and somebody just dashes inside and somebody else gets stunned by that hypnotic pattern and they have to slap them awake, and then that person just inserts the key while they're getting bathed with the fire, and just all this shit is happening, and then they just barely able to turn it on, and then that's what actually wins the day. I think that's awesome. Whether or not we can pull that off, I don't know. I'll try my best. And I've got complication after complication set up for the party that they don't know about. They don't know about any of this. And that's something I have to keep in mind also, is that what might look hard or easy for me, they have to deal with on the fly. And that's also part of the challenge of trying to figure out how exactly that's going to manifest. The one thing that I will try not to do is throw too many of these tedious patrols and fights at them, because I think it does get tedious at that point and would throw them into a lot of danger. And yet I do need to reflect the fact that the entire Clockwork defense force is on high alert, and they are being actively hunted, and then the whole area is being actively patrolled. And if anything, Tockworth knows that they took the key, and they're probably in Smolder Town heading for the failsafe. Like, she's not stupid. So they're actively searching for them. And I could still use their passive perception, or I could roll active perception, I guess. That you could go higher or lower than that, but their passive is a 16, which is already a pretty good benchmark for the party to have to beat. I would allow them to tie it or beat it, so they have to make a 16 or higher. As a group check, though, technically, the rules for group check is kind of wonky, and I wonder if they actually fixed that in 2024, then I'm going to think about it. I remember actually reading something about this, where they're like, yeah, in a case where everybody has to stealth, you actually don't call for a group check. Yeah, here we go. Group checks aren't appropriate. So normally a group check is if half the group succeeds, the whole group succeeds. So it's something you're doing when everybody needs to do the same thing, but as long as at least half the group makes it, then the whole group succeeds. But it even specifically points out and stealth is an example, group checks aren't appropriate when one character's failure would spell disaster for the whole party, such as if the characters are creeping across a castle courtyard while trying not to alert the guards. In that case, one noisy character will draw the guards' attention, and there's not much the stealthier characters can do about it, so relying on individual checks makes more sense. Similarly, don't use a group check when a single sufficient check is sufficient. So that's tricky. So instead of doing a group check, which the party is used to, technically it should just be individual stealth checks for folks that get in there. That's really hard though, because some people have really shitty stealth rolls, which if you've got this many characters and NPCs, you've almost guaranteed that someone is going to fail if you do it that way. So I do kind of have a problem with that. I don't know what the best solution is, because I get realistically, like, everybody should make a stealth check. And of course, that's the classic, like, everybody's sneaking along and then all of a sudden you hear a branch break and you turn around and you're one big lumbering party member stepped on a branch, and that's dooms everybody. But the problem is here it often leads to combat versus a chase sequence because of the whole alert heist system we've got here. So hopefully the party is smart about it and can figure out the right way to do it. The right way to do it, honestly, is to have Elowen drop out of bear form and just cast Pass Without Trace on everybody. Because a plus 10 means everybody just has to roll a 6 or better. Which, again, not a guarantee, but at least a lot better than... Or not even a 6 or better. I guess it depends on what your dex score is. So it might only have to roll a higher number. But it gets very tricky when the penalty is like a straight-up patrol combat, I think. You could give the party a chance to roll dex checks. I think I had this in my rules too. To try and take out the observer before, like Baldur's Gate, I think, does this. I don't have a specific example, but when you like enter initiative and you can see that a creature's first move is going to be to like summon other creatures, for example, but you have a chance if you go before that creature to just take it out before it can do that. So that's something I might actually be more amenable to. In which case it becomes, down to initiative. And I guess it depends on if that only works if the patrol is literally just an observer versus a bigger patrol, which I feel like the bigger patrol you'd be able to avoid a little bit easier. You'd like hear and see them coming and you could, hide back away from them. Although then again, I guess you're requiring a stealth check versus the observer is a lot harder and it's a lot quieter to try to, get a heads up on. But you have the chance that if you're seen, you would immediately have everybody roll for initiative, and then depending on where it fell in initiative, folks could get a chance to take it out, which these things are very weak. Only have an AC of 14, an average of 10 hit points, but a plus 3 in initiative, that's certainly not a guarantee. And then you could argue also that their shriek that summons Clockworks, they don't spawn instantly, right? It takes like a round or two, but so that gives the party, I guess, technically a chance to, run and crash into the tavern or something and try to hide. So I'm trying to work with them, basically, because I do think it would be tedious to just throw more of these little combats at them. But there still should be, it should feel like you are hiding from an active threat, and there should be consequences for that. Show my dice rolls, be very transparent as to show that I'm not against the players. It's interesting because we've talked about this a lot in the past, not so much recently, about how a virtual tabletop, and I'm not sure why, but it lends itself to public dice rolls and public information versus when I play at the table, which is very rare these days, I still have a DM screen and I do everything behind the screen. But I think there's just a level of, I guess, trust that comes with the table, and the fact that somebody could like peer over, I guess, if they wanted to, or just, you're talking to them directly, versus on a virtual tabletop. I think that, I don't know, it's harder to have that level of trust, of honesty. And so by putting everything out in public, yeah, it takes a lot of that away, and we all accept the results about it. Now, the flip side of that is it's a lot harder to fudge dice in the player's favor, which is where I would normally go versus in my favor. The one thing that I keep hidden, the one piece of information that's hidden from the party, which you all may not realize because you watch it from my point of view, the party does not see the hit points of the enemies. You all see them because I see them. But from the party's perspective, they just see this as a token. They don't see the health bars or anything like that. So enemy hit points is the one hidden piece of information that I still have. And you have often seen me fudge those numbers ever so slightly. Usually not more than like 10% or something. And typically it's in the party's favor, where you'll see just an enemy that's taken a long time to kill or something, or the combat that's kind of waning. Somebody does 4 damage and an enemy had 6 hit points left or whatever. And I'm like, all right, that's a killing blow. Like it's whatever at that point. Very, very rarely, if I really want an enemy to do, like, if it's a boss monster or something, I really want them to do one more thing and they're really close, I may have them stick around even after they've gone through all their hit points. But so I fudge the other direction, but that's extremely rare. I can't think of the last time I did that, but I know I have done that in the past. But what happens way more often with like minions and stuff is that I'll just kill off somebody who's got a few hit points left. And you all who've seen the sessions have seen me do that live. And that's because the hit points is the one piece of information that I have that's hidden that I can kind of play with as a DM. But yeah, in terms of the actual hits and stuff, which is also tricky, that when an enemy is really low on hit points, I'm like, all right, I'm going to just have this enemy die the next time somebody hits it. But then we all have that public information of like, oh, this person just missed like 3 times in a row. They've already figured out what the AC is. Like, I can't have this enemy just fall over dead. So we're going to have to keep going. And you can't, you have to actually hit the enemy. But then whatever like damage gets rolled is going to finish them off. For group chips, I just follow Daggerheart now. So the Daggerheart rules that I remember, which I am very much immersing myself in the Daggerheart stuff, I'm still covering it on my channel, is that I believe one character makes the skill check, and then other party members can make their own skill checks, which can be completely different. And if they succeed or fail, that either adds a +1 or -1 modifier to the lead player's skill check. So let's say the lead player has to, I don't know what a good example is. Sneak, if they have to like sneak in somewhere. No, because it's a group thing. I don't know. They have to break down a door, or so. I don't know, it would take a full group to. Anyway, but the other party members can choose to like, oh, I'm going to use my my presence skill to like rally that person and make sure they're going to do a really good job. And somebody else is like, I'm going to use my knowledge skill to try to explain to you why this particular part of the door is going to be weak. And then those characters make their own skill check. So it becomes like skill challenge, I guess. And they make their own skill check, I guess with the same difficulty level. And then if they succeed or fail, that adds a +1 or -1 to the lead party member. So it's still the one person doing the one thing, but the others can basically help them, and they're also making their own skill check. I believe is how the group check thing is done. I don't know how. So I guess for stealth rules, you would just have like one person be sneaking, and kind of like they would be the lead stealther. So they'd be equivalent of like them like looking out and like ushering everybody forward. And so everybody else isn't using their stealth checks necessarily. It's only the one person using stealth. But then everybody else can be like using, I forget what's perception in Daggerheart. Instinct, I think. They can use that check to like look out for something, or again, somebody can use knowledge because they know the area and the terrain, and somebody can use agility check to try to dance around any difficult areas. So basically, it turns into a skill challenge where everybody can just do their own thing. But importantly, they're not. It's only the one person doing the thing that you, the GM, called for. They're making that important critical check, whether they succeed or fail. It's just that everybody else just gives them a +1 or -1 modifier. So hopefully I've explained that. Basically, it's equivalent to, I think, a D&D skill challenge, except only the one person actually counts whether you succeed or fail it. Just everybody else is a modifier to that person if they succeed or fail. And I think they all use the same difficulty. So if you choose the difficulty at like 14 or something, everybody else is rolling against that same difficulty, which is funny because I guess you do force everybody to do a thing. Otherwise, they could just be like, "Nah, I'm just gonna kind of go with the flow." But like, I guess you have to do something, and then you're always gonna end up doing a +1 or -1 to. I would also probably rule that if you like critically succeed yours, I would probably lie to give like a +2 to the lead person's modifier. So, and again, you're supposed to have players that can like explain and detail like why that skill is important here and how they're utilizing it. And Daggerheart really relies on a lot of that collaboration between players to try to bring all that to life versus the GM kind of having to do all that work. Ideally, basically, is everybody working together to try to make sense for that particular skill. I stealth with strength makes no sense. Well, you're not going to stealth with strength. It's that you are helping the person doing the stealth. Which I get that stealth is probably the most difficult one to like help somebody with. But like I said, like strength, maybe not. But like you could use finesse or presence or knowledge in different ways, like just quickly like rally everybody up, or maybe throw your voice could be like a presence check for whatever reason, and then knowledge could be like you're just sighting out the area and you're like, all right, I know that this alleyway's probably got this thing over here, so that's the best way to go. So again, you could try to make it make sense for all those. Strength, I am failing on trying to make some sort of feat of athleticism helps the stealthier person make the stealth check. But the person who needs to stealth is still making a stealth check, if that makes sense. It's only the party members who are changing them around. Anyway, I could go off on a whole Daggerheart tangent. I think Daggerheart's actually really brilliant in a lot of ways, and I look forward to reading and checking about it more. In fact, I'm currently looking through and I guess reviewing the campaign frames in the core rulebook. I previously covered the core rulebook just as a review, and I previously covered character creation. So now I'm looking at kind of the adventure options that are at least included in the rulebook. All right, folks, I think that is going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Golden Vault. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoy the content, as always, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocide, Roleplayer, Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Lemis, Buzz, Wardy, Mills, E, Tom, the Dogs, Marcus, Hugo, Jealous Guy, Zim, Dante, How About, Demnix, Chris, Robert, Neil, and Gold patrons RPG, Paper Cramps, Speedboy, and Yuma, Diddler's Lounge, Drome, Nathan, Scott, Rufus, Jerry, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. If you are a Platinum patron signed up for tonight's supersize session, I will see you tonight. Otherwise, everybody else, I will see you on Sunday. Or tomorrow if you want to watch us play Baldur's Gate. And you should, because it's fun.